Here's one corporate media outlet that is willing to acknowledge some of the struggles men face, but the prescription they offer is downright terrible. It would be hilarious if the issue wasn't so dire. This article that was just published comes from the Washington Post, and it's written by a woman, of course. And it's impressive in one sense, which is that it manages to reach exactly the wrong diagnosis on every single aspect of the problem. The article is called "Men's Groups Are Embracing an Alternative Conception of American Masculinity." Now, the whole thing reads like a parody, so if you're able to, you should check it out immediately. I can't recommend it highly enough. The Washington Post wants to give us the real story about why men are lonely and how best to combat that epidemic. And what's their suggestion? Well, just to summarize, basically, they say that dudes should lie around doing breathing exercises and smelling incense while some guy named Rua gropes them and whispers stuff like this, quote, "I invite you to maybe bring up an intention, how you want to live in this world, how you want to love in this world, how you want to be in this world." Now, that's not an exaggeration. That's a direct quote from the article. The men's groups that are the article profiles are not, these aren't Bible studies or flag football leagues, the kinds of men's groups that men would actually want to join. No, these are new age, touchy-feely group hugs where men learn how to get in touch with their feminine side. Later in the session that is being documented there by the article, the men start screaming and sobbing and crying and letting their emotions, quote, flow freely as they are, quote, released into the darkness. Now, the article goes on to quote a bunch of experts who, quote unquote experts, who all say the familiar things about how men are lonely and lost because of toxic masculinity that encourages us to be too stoic and too reserved and so forth. It laments the, quote, cowboy mentality that has allegedly contributed to the problem. Now, the masculinity expert who coined that phrase about the cowboy mentality is a woman named Niobe Way. And she, of course, quickly identifies the real victims in the story of male loneliness. Can you guess who the real victims are? Who's most put upon by male loneliness? Well, Niobe says it's women. Think of the women. Men are lonely. Women most impacted. She says, quote, women end up being the therapists for their husbands, and more are getting sick of it. Yes, God forbid wives have to listen to their husbands and offer them solace and comfort. They're sick of it, says masculinity expert Niobe. Now, that's not a conflicting message at all, is it? On one hand, men need to open up more, but on the other hand, if they do open up, then they're putting an unfair burden on their wives who are being asked to do too much emotional labor. Okay, then. By the way, women, just a quick note. If you feel like you're sick of hearing about your husband's troubles, just keep in mind that he hears about yours about 1,000 times more often. You know, a company is looking out for you when they actually upgrade your service and don't charge you for it. This is great news for new and current Pure Talk customers. Pure Talk just added data to every plan and includes a mobile hotspot with no price increase whatsoever. If you've considered Pure Talk before but haven't made the switch, take a look again. For just $20 a month, you'll get unlimited talk, text, and now 50% more 5G data, plus their new mobile hotspot. This is why I love Pure Talk. They're veteran-owned and only hire the best customer service team located right here in the great USA. Most families are saving almost $1,000 a year while enjoying the most dependable 5G network in America. Remember, you vote with how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that don't support you. When you go to puretalk.com/Walsh, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month because they actually value you. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans, by Americans. Most people only think about poor air quality when we have fires like the ones that just happened in Canada, causing New York to be a strange orange color that made the air quality absolutely terrible. But have you stopped to think about the polluted air in your day-to-day life? You and your family's health may be affected by the air quality in your home. Allergens and germs floating in the air you breathe can make you sick. But the good news is that there's technology out there that helps you purify your living space easily and affordably. With EnviroCleanse, you'll never have to worry again. EnviroCleanse is an in-home air purifying unit designed to destroy cold and flu viruses, allergy-inflaming toxins, molds, and even more. EnviroCleanse promises far fewer colds, allergies, and better sleep. Their air purifiers come in all sizes, colors, and prices to fit every budget, and they offer additional products like a surface cleaner and laundry detergent. EnviroCleanse is the air purifier we use in our home, and I love it. It gives me the peace of mind that I need than to know that my family is breathing healthy air. The last thing I need with how often I'm traveling is to get sick, or for anyone in the family to get sick. EnviroCleanse offers a simple solution for keeping me healthy and our family healthy in tip-top shape. Breathe in pure air and live a healthier life. Visit ekpure.com and use code Walsh for 10% off your EnviroCleanse home air purification unit. Right now, you also get their free air quality monitor test plus fast free shipping. That's $150 in savings. ekpure.com, code Walsh. That's ekpure.com, promo code Walsh. Now, meanwhile, a consultant named Mark Green says this, quote, if a boy expresses too much emotion or too much need for connection, is too giddy, is too joyful, what we say to that boy is, what are you, a sissy? What are you, a girl? What are you, gay? It's your job to dominate those around you or you'll lose status, and that will increase the number of individuals above you who can dish out dominance to you. And what we find is that in that system, in that structure, men are constantly in competition with each other and constantly driven by this sense of anxiety. So that's the real problem. Too much competition, too much stoicism, too much, men are too combative and aggressive, and we got to calm all that down. Well, the problem with this theory is obvious, or it should be. Okay? If a cowboy mentality and too much macho stoicism is what is driving the epidemic of lost and lonely men, then why is the problem getting worse over time? Everyone agrees it's worse now than ever before. I just went through some of the many statistics that prove that. This is a major problem. Yes, men are in bad shape. But if that's all getting worse, then how can we blame traditional notions of masculinity? There's no doubt that it's far less common for boys to be called sissies these days or labeled gay as a pejorative. I can't remember the last time I saw a boy being lambasted as a sissy because he's being emotional. That almost never happens anymore. Used to be very common. And again, it certainly was more common, back in the day, 50 years ago, or at any other time in human history. Indeed, historically, the push for a man to be strong and dominant and unemotional was much more pronounced than it is today. In fact, historically, if a man didn't exhibit those traits, then he would die and his whole family would die. It's only in recent times that it's even been a feasible option for men to be feminine and soft and in touch with their feelings. And it's also in recent times that men have lost all sense of themselves and their purpose and place in the world. Speaking of the cowboy mentality, why didn't actual cowboys have these problems? If a cowboy mentality leads to despair and suicide, then we should find a whole hell of a lot of it when we look back at the latter half of the 19th century, which was the era of the cowboy. But that's not what we find. The post's overall thesis can probably be best summarized in this sentence from the article, quote, American men's isolation stems in large part from a pervasive cultural belief, experts say, that men should be self-reliant and hide their emotions, especially from other men. The absurdity of the premise could not be any more clear. Would anyone argue that the cultural belief that men should be self-reliant and hide their emotions is more pervasive today than it was half a century ago? Of course not. So again, if that's the cause of the problem, why is the problem worse today? The trends are clearly going the other way. The correlation works entirely in the other direction. As society loses traditional notions of masculinity, suicides increase. This is undeniable. It's not debatable. You could try to explain that correlation away all you want, but if you deny it or pretend it doesn't exist, you lose all credibility in this discussion. Now, these experts are correct that men need fellowship, and men are missing it these days, and that is part of the problem, definitely. But they even miss the point on that end too. Even when they're right, they end up being wrong because they encourage men to fellowship in the way that women fellowship. They tell men to sit around and talk about their feelings, do some yoga, listen to soft music, hold each other and cry. That's not the kind of fellowship men need or want. Okay, we can't expect corporate media's masculinity experts to understand this because their masculinity experts are all effeminate. But any normal man can attest that men tend to bond while engaging in a shared activity. And I don't mean yoga, okay? I mean like one that doesn't require a lot of talking, like sitting and watching the game or fishing or golfing, playing pickup basketball, and so on. I went out fishing with my brother-in-law a few weeks ago, and when we came back, my wife asked me what we talked about, and I said, I don't know, nothing really. You didn't talk about anything? You didn't talk about it. Well, we talked about fishing. You went fishing and you just talked about fishing? What's going on in his life? What's going on? What did you talk about? We didn't talk about much. She was shocked and confused because women don't operate that way. But men and women are not the same. And you cannot hope to help men or offer them any roadmap out of despair if you don't start by acknowledging that basic fact. Now, when it comes to true male fellowship, the problem is that society has closed off many of the opportunities for that kind of fellowship. There are no men's lodges anymore. There are very few bowling leagues and that sort of thing. Most men's spaces have either been shut down or feminized. It's been decided that men should socialize like women and with women or not at all. Women barge into every male space and say, I want to be a part of this too. Include me. And then the men just end up walking away from it. They say, it's pointless now that you're here, frankly. It's like the men's lodge exists because to be a place where you aren't, so that we don't have that. We don't want that here. Well, that hurts my feelings. I want to be included in everything. And then those same women turn around and say, well, why aren't men fellowshipping at all? Well, maybe because you won't butt out? Maybe because you won't allow it? Maybe because you want to make everything about you? This is the message across the board. Society beckons to men and tells them that their salvation is to be women. And then we wonder why so many men are killing themselves. We live ultimately, for all the talk of patriarchy, we do not live in a patriarchy. Ultimately, we live in a matriarchal society with institutions either run by women or by effeminate men who, in their arrogance, simply cannot accept the fact that men are different from women and have different needs and desires. So this is the real problem. It's not that men are too focused on masculinity. It's that masculinity has been neutered, castrated, driven out of society, leaving men feeling lost and without purpose. Our notions of masculinity aren't too traditional. On the contrary, they aren't nearly traditional enough. The solution isn't that we sit around and talk about our feelings. It's that we do a whole lot less of that sort of thing and get back to being men again. And if we can be men in a society that embraces and values our masculinity, suddenly this tide of male loneliness and despair will start to ebb. That is the solution. There is no other. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.